Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network on this beautiful Friday, April 25th. Happy Draft Day 2. We got even more draft talk. But before we get into any of that, I just want to remind everyone that this show is all about all y'all. All y'all, it just came out. Wow. But we love hearing from you during the show. Any opinion, comment, insight, hot take, whatever you got, we would love to hear it. One easy way to ensure that your comment gets on the air is to use the super chat feature. To do that, go and click the $ in the bottom of the chat box, type in your comment, question, opinion, whatever there, and send that in, and it'll pop up on my screen. I'll be able to read your comments, and it's just a great way to support our show as well. We couldn't do what we do at GSMC without all of your support. We're so grateful to have all of you as a part of our community here at GSMC, and just so that we can keep bringing you the sports content and just content overall that you love. I want to talk a little bit about some of my favorite picks from day one. Not necessarily guys that, everybody said was a great pick, but just ones that I kind of really liked. My first one that I saw that I was like, ooh, that's going to be a really good pick. I'm kind of wondering how I want to do this. I think I'm going to go in terms of draft order. So the first pick of the evening that I saw that I really loved, really keyed in on, was Tyler Warren to the Indianapolis Colts at the number 14 overall selection. First of all, I was pretty shocked when Colston Loveland went before Tyler Warren at number 10 overall to the Chicago Bears. I really thought if Tyler Warren was there at 10, Ben Johnson would jump on him. Just how he can be used. Johnson is a really creative play caller, can line Tyler Warren up in a number of different formations, but that's not what happened. They went with a different tight end. They went with Colston Loveland, who is a great prospect in his own right, was the consensus number one tight end coming into this year before Tyler Warren rewrote history books. But I think I'm a Tyler Warren fan, and this is a guy that when you look at what he did in college, finished his Penn State career as program leader in total touchdowns, in receptions, in receiving yards, and in receiving touchdowns among all tight ends ever. And they've had a couple good ones, especially you think about like Mike Gesicki went there and had a really great career. Tyler Warren outpaced all of them in basically every statistical category that he could, that they're eligible for. But this is a guy that's super versatile. Like I said, he can line up anywhere. He can line up outside as a perimeter wideout. He can line up in the slot. He can line up in line as a true traditional tight end. He can line up in the backfield. He's even taken snaps at quarterback. This is a dude that literally can play pretty much anywhere. In that kind of sense, he's kind of similar to like Taysom Hill. But think Taysom Hill, but a lot more talented and a lot more upside. Not taking anything away from Taysom Hill. That's my guy. But Tyler Warren can do all that at an elite level all the time. This is a guy, especially, I think one of the underrated characteristics of him is his ability after the catch. Powerful, instinctive runner, able to break the first tackle super easily, a lot quicker and more agile than people kind of expect, and it shows up when you watch him on tape. You see cornerbacks, safeties kind of misjudging his speed and quickness all the time. And for Indy, this was a team that was really tied to Tyler Warren throughout the draft process, for a really good reason. Their tight end room is severely lacking. They had the fewest receptions by a tight end group in 2024. Now Shane Steichen can slot Tyler Warren in there, give him a guy that can produce from a number of different positions, and he can kind of be that middle of the field target that Indy really, really needs right now. Help out Anthony Richardson if he's still potentially the answer at quarterback for the Colts. I don't know. I have questions about that, but this is a guy that will help his overall development just gives Indy a more dynamic passing option. I really love Tyler Warren to the Colts. I think that's a move that makes a lot of sense. The next pick that I was like, during the draft watching live, interesting because I thought he got drafted a little higher than I would have taken him, but I really like the pick. Emeka Egbuka to the Bucs at 19, I thought was really interesting. And Tampa Bay throughout the draft process, it was defense, safety. Mocks had them taking safeties, corners, pretty much anywhere on the defensive side of the ball. Linebacker, D-end. Nowhere said wide out. But if you look at it, I think it makes sense. So in the short term, you pair him with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You give them a really solid trio. And you still have Jalen McMillan, who had a lot of flashes last season. So you have those guys. You really make that room a strength for the Bucs. But in the long term, this is also a really good move. Think about Mike Evans. He's getting up there into his 30s, kind of going to start to slow down in the next couple years, still producing at a great level. Also, Chris Godwin, he's entering his age 30 season. He's also, though, a guy that comes with injury concerns, has a lengthy injury history, missed 10 games last year. So you give them an option to replace those guys in the long term with Jalen McMillan. There's still two wide receivers that can kind of form the nucleus of that offense for the Bucs. I really like it. I think you pair Emeka Egbuka in the slot. Even though Chris Godwin, he's a really great slot receiver. He can kind of line up outside. I also think Emeka Egbuka can as well, but he's definitely much more of, I guess, a true slot wide receiver in terms of how he kind of plays. But even though he might have gone a little higher than I would have thought, or most people would have thought, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Bucs once you kind of dive into it. And I like it. Just short-term and long-term planning is always a good thing. And when you can get it in one pick, that's even better. Another guy that I thought I really liked the draft selection was Omarion Hampton to the Los Angeles Chargers at number 22 overall. And I'm sure Jim Harbaugh had the biggest smile on his face when this guy's draft card went in. Harbaugh traditionally loves that running game. He likes a powerful, physical offense. That's just kind of how he wants his teams to be. That's how he builds them. And that's when he's had the most success. Last year, running game was a little lacking for the Chargers, but you put in Omarion Hampton. This is a big, bruising, powerful running back, pretty much in the mold of like the ideal back size, kind of characteristics of what Jim Harbaugh is looking for. That's Omarion Hampton. This is a guy that he's going to take the pressure off Justin Herbert a little bit, give them more in that running game, and also is a true three-down running back, not taking away from his ability in the pass game as a blocker, as a receiver. I think this is a guy that he immediately raises both the floor and the ceiling of the Chargers offense, of what they can do, makes them a little more multifaceted, just in terms of their approach. Obviously, they did sign Najee Harris this offseason, but Omarion Hampton is a really great prospect, and I think he's a guy that is probably going to take over as the lead running back pretty soon into the season. I don't know if he starts that way. They might kind of go more of a carry split between him and Najee Harris, at least to start, but I think Omarion Hampton eventually takes over, gives them a true bell cow running back for Jim Harbaugh to lean on, and I think that's something that could propel the Chargers to a little more success this upcoming season. Then the other two picks that I really loved were the last two ones that were made. The Philadelphia Eagles, they did it again. They waited, they sat, they did trade up from 32 to 31, gave up a fifth rounder, but they waited, sat, and still probably got a top 15 prospect in this year's draft class in Jihaad Campbell. This is something it seems like Philly does every single year, but again, this is why they're a perennial playoff contender right now, and this is why they won the Super Bowl. Because of their drafting, because of how Howie Roseman kind of works the board. But this is a guy that can do a lot of different things for the Eagles defense. speedy linebacker, could excel in a role that was similar to, how Zach Bond was last season. Obviously, they did re-sign Zach Bond, but you add Jihaad Campbell to that room. He can play stack linebacker. He can play off the edge. He's a good spy in the run game. Got to work on his coverage skills a little bit, but his ultimate role is probably just going to depend more on his physical development. But just the value of this pick, the fit, I think this is a guy that makes a lot of sense for the Eagles, and a guy that's just going to continue to be another reason of why Philly is still one of the better franchises in the NFL right now, and in a better spot than a vast majority of the league. Then the last guy, Josh Simmons at 32 to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sure Patrick Mahomes was saying, "Thank you, Lord. I finally have a left tackle that hopefully can protect me." And this was a guy that the Chiefs wanted. They had been targeting. They had said, a source from the Chiefs had said that Josh Simmons was their dream target. They never really expected him to be available when the Chiefs came on the board, but he was still there. Kansas City was able to pick him up. This is a legitimate offensive tackle prospect that can be a left tackle starter. I don't know if he's ready right away. He is recovering from a torn patella tendon, happened in October. If that didn't happen, I think he's a top 10, top 15 pick in this class easily, but because of that, slid down a little bit in some teams' boards, and the Chiefs are really happy that this guy was still around. They had a dire need at tackle. That's been a rotating door for them the past few years. Kind of tried a couple different things. At one point, they even bumped Joe Thuney out to left tackle. They signed Jalen Moore from the Niners this offseason, gave him $15 million a year, but this is a guy that was a rotational player for San Francisco, so they still needed to add to the tackle spot, and Josh Simmons gives them a guy that could be a really high-caliber offensive tackle pretty soon in the near future. I don't think he's that far away. I think the one thing is just coming back from the injury, how they're going to kind of work him in and get him reps. That's going to be the one big thing there. But I think that's a guy that can be the left tackle there for many years to come if everything kind of goes well. So we're going to take another quick break on the show. When we come back, you guessed it, we got more draft talk. We're going to talk a little bit about Shedeur and what's going on there. But we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.